joining us. My name is Donnie. I'm a volunteer with Green Home. A little background about Green Home. We are a volunteer-run nonprofit that promotes energy efficiency and sustainability within the built environment. We have three main branches. First is the monthly forums, which we're at right now, where we talk about different sustainability topics with experts in the field. Another branch that we have is the careers branch, and we also have local site visits when there's no COVID. Okay, so tonight's event is about circular economy. We have four really great experts, and we're really excited to get this talk going. First, we just want to take a quick survey and see where everyone's coming from. Liza, can you poll? All right, we got a lot of people saying where they're coming from. Okay, architecture, we got a lot of education, professional business. Good, okay, great range of audiences. Good, okay. All right, so starting off our talk is a representative from a company who is living walking the walk in terms of circular economy. We have Bobby Gaafar is the head of North American for Algramo. Most recently, he was an EIR at ZX Ventures, AB InBev's innovation and venture capital arm, where he founded Beerbox, an innovative IoT vending system. Bobby was the co-creator and the CEO of Carrot Creative, a digital marketing agency that worked with brands such as Jaguar, Red Bull, and Home Depot. He helped build the company to over 50 employees, which sold to Vice in 2013. Additionally, he founded a consumer web obsessive and SaaS service, CropUp, with a focus on e-commerce and CPG. Also, he's consulted for one of the largest retailers to help grow a new business line to $50 million plus in sales. Welcome, Bobby.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the intro. So I'm gonna share my screen and do a little presentation for you all about Algramo and all the exciting things that we have going on. This allows me to do it. Let's see. All right, it doesn't look like it's allowing me to do it. Do you mind, Danny, or somebody else from the team to present my slides?
Try now.
No, it's still not working. Let's see.
Try it now. It should be working.
It's like the window is coming up and disappearing. So it might just be my computer.
Okay, well, I actually have your presentation on backup.
There we go, backup.
This is what we have it for. Yeah. All right. Let's get started. Okay. Presentation. Shoot, view. Oh my gosh. Okay, can everyone see? Can you see my screen?
All I see is the top of Adobe. Like all I can see is like just like the top.
Oh gosh. Okay, hold on.
There we go.
Okay, it's getting somewhere. Full screen mode. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the little hiccup, guys.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's not letting me full screen. Okay, we're just gonna go like this. Go. Okay, go.
There we go. So I'm Bobby Gaafar. I'm the head of North America for Algramo. You could go slide on to the next slide. So Algramo focuses on three particular areas. The first being the poverty tax. So the poverty tax impacts lower income consumers, specifically around the products that they purchase, whether it's in small bodegas or larger retailers. In terms of a particular type of packaging, let's say like a Clorox bottle, they end up paying 40% more for single-use packaging compared to middle income to higher income. And the reason for this is that they don't necessarily have access to a larger packaging size as compared to those other segments. Because they're limited to making those purchases within retailers like bodegas that don't necessarily have the purchasing power of a Walmart or a Target. A second point is packaging waste. As we're all familiar, our oceans are being polluted by single-use packaging. And the third point is future of retail. Obviously, consumer demands and needs and wants are constantly shifting within retail, as well as particular areas around regulations as well. So you could go to the next slide. Okay, great. So what is Algramo? So Algramo is a smart dispensing system that allows consumers to buy the product, not the packaging. So our focus is really on affordability and convenience. And we do this by allowing you to buy the product and not the packaging. And so what do I mean by that? You could go to the next slide. So what I mean by that is our user journey is very simple. So you download the Algramo app and you add some funds to it. You could add as little as $2 if you want to get started. And you use the Algramo Smart Bottle. And so what's very unique about the Algramo Smart Bottles is that we have a smart tag on it, which in essence is an RFID tag. And we put this on just typical home care and cleaning products like a Clorox bottle or a Pine Sol bottle and so forth. And so it turns basically the single-use packaging product into a reusable package. And by reusing your package, you insert your package into the Algramo system, and it allows you to reuse that package over and over. And so the beauty of that is that instead of paying $5 for that bottle of Clorox at the store, you're now paying around $2. And the reason for that is that the package itself, the plastic, makes up about 40% of the overall cost. So by reusing that package, you end up saving that cost at the end of the day. So what's great about this is that the brands love being able to reuse the package because obviously this is less raw material costs, less inventory risk for them, and allows them just to focus on actually selling their product at the end of the day. You could go to the next slide. We had this really cool video. Unfortunately, I can't share my screen. But I'll touch on this very quickly. So Algramo had started in Chile roughly about 6 or 7 years ago. It was founded by a founder by the name of Cote, who noticed in lower income areas within Chile that citizens were basically paying more for grains of, let's say, rice and beans compared to middle to higher income residents who had access to retailers with higher purchasing power. So we came up with this idea that basically put these vending machines within these bodegas, and consumers would basically reuse these plastic containers to refill for rice and beans. So the idea basically grew from there into laundry detergent, ended up partnering with Unilever and basically selling laundry detergent reusable bottles, and got this kind of neat idea to basically take these electric tricycles, which you could see in that picture, and put a vending machine in the back of an electric tricycle. And these tricycles basically ride around lower to middle income areas, basically kind of set up shop on a corner, and people come out and refill their bottles. So this is currently going on in Chile. It's going actually very well. You could go to the next slide. So our system, so we focus on three particular stakeholders. So that would be brands, retailers, and consumers. And we do this all under kind of a business intelligence dashboard as well. So the benefits for brands are actually pretty clear. So in terms of allowing these brands to sell direct consumer, a lot of these brands, this is a new channel for them, new sales channel. In particular, like a bigger company like a Clorox, they typically sell their products at a wholesale level, and then they lose sight of those products all the way down to how much their products are actually being sold for at a Walmart or at a Target or even at a bodega as well. So in essence, we're allowing these brands to sell direct to consumer within different locations. From a retailer side, whether it's a big box or smaller, our entire system is self-service, is cashless, is touchless as well. And it's also flexible purchasing. So what I mean by that is that as a consumer, you don't necessarily have to pay for an entire bottle if you don't want to. So if you want to fill up the bottle of detergent halfway, you could fill it up halfway and only pay for the product. From a consumer side standpoint, it's pretty clear as well. So with the bottle itself, it in essence acts as your wallet. So once you sign up in our system, we tag that bottle to your email address. So every time you bring that bottle back, we know that it's you, and we also know how much money's on your account. So it's very cool that you're actually using the bottle as your wallet. Additionally, we're able to keep track of how many bottles you've saved and the type of impact you've made on the environment as well, and also a market, creative and useful promotions to you at the end of the day. So from a business intelligence standpoint, we're able to track this data in real time, and also from a consumer standpoint that brands and retailers necessarily haven't had before, and that they're very excited about as well. You could go to the next slide. We have been operating in the US for the past 2 months. So we're currently running our pilot in Brooklyn, New York. We've been fortunate to partner with the Clorox company selling Clorox splashless bleach, as well as Pine Sol. We've recently partnered with Colgate that sells soft soap, hand soap, and as well as kind of a Brooklyn local eco-friendly cleaning care company by the name of Ecologic Solutions. So we're currently piloting in 3 locations. One of them is in a laundromat in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. The second is in a commercial building in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, building 77. And the third, which are hopefully rolling out soon, is in Essex Market in the Lower East Side in Manhattan as well. And I should also note is we actually do have one of those electric tricycles with us right now. We're hoping to kind of roll it out soon in a pilot as well within the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And then the bottle on the right, I just want to point out quickly. So we've been lucky to actually co-brand the Algramo Smart Tag with Clorox as well, and put that co-branding on the label, which is an amazing opportunity for us. You could go to the next slide. So you probably just scroll down just a touch. So in terms of us with the omni-channel experience, so it's kind of a big picture for us. So with the Algramo system, we see it as a platform. So we believe we have the opportunity to sell all types of different products, whether it's in cleaning care segment or whether it's in pet food, which our team in Chile is actually piloting a pet food project with Purina, with Nestle. But in terms of kind of the different verticals we see from a mobile standpoint, as I highlighted, tricycles, they're actually doing some at-home delivery in Chile. We believe farmers markets are an interesting opportunity from a standalone standpoint with the stationary machine. Residential buildings we think are a terrific opportunity, college campuses, laundromats, transportation hubs. And from a retailer standpoint, big box stores present an interesting opportunity where we can take over like an entire wall and sell, instead of just selling 2 different types of products, we could sell 10 or 15 different types of products. And then obviously going back to our roots with putting the machines in bodega areas to help out lower income residents as well. So you go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, in terms of kind of Algramo, as it started in Chile, kind of a success to date. So the first version with the vending machine that targeted with selling rice and beans, we found out there's an 80% reuse rate with these containers, which is an amazing stat, and it really showed that we've kind of hit on something that people valued reusing their containers and also valued the savings. The second version, which is this tricycle in Chile, we've seen a 40% reuse rate in containers, which is still terrific, because you're obviously selling a different type of product, and the means of how you're selling that is different as well. So in terms of partners and brands, fortunate to have investors like Closed Loop Partners, which are based in New York, that invest in a circular economy. Chile team is working with Walmart, as well as Unilever and Nestle, as I mentioned. You can go to the next slide, which I think might be our last slide. So yes, so that's the end of the presentation. Maybe I could try to figure out the video later so you could all see it. But I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to present Algramo to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby. That was, it was really innovative. And if anyone has any questions, please put it in the chat, and then we're going to do a Q&A with everyone later. But I do have one question, just sort of to start it off. Is there a bottle take back? Like at the end, it's say like the consumer doesn't want that product anymore. They're kind of like done with Clorox or whatever. They want to go eco-friendly something. Do they have an option to give you guys back the container?
I mean, not right now. The bottles themselves, these plastic bottles are manufactured to be reused, and we don't reuse them. And so we're estimating roughly around like 12 uses for a bottle until it has to be thrown out and recycled. I think we'll probably get longer. I'll be a bit optimistic, because some of these plastics used in these bottles are just last forever. A take back bottle program now, not yet. I mean, we've only been operating for 2 months, so we hope you continue to buy from us and continue to reuse. But I think eventually, you know, maybe if we're in residential buildings or bigger retailers where it's a bit easier to kind of you know, get your attention, or that's kind of like your spot where you make your purchase, maybe we could set up something there.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
All righty, next we have Daniela Osio, is the founder of Kloopify, a SaaS company focused on accelerating the world's transition to sustainable materials. Formerly at DuPont, Daniela was a global risk management leader who created, developed, and implemented a risk management organization for the $4 billion electronics and imaging business unit. She led the warehousing, barge, tank, and transloading categories through the Dow and DuPont merger. In 2019 was named 30 Under 30 Supply Chain Star by the Institute of Supply Chain Management. Welcome, Daniela.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Let me see if I can share my screen here. All righty, let's share. Oh, perfect. Can you guys see my screen? All right, so thanks for the introduction, the warm introduction. And as Danny had mentioned, my name is Daniela, and I'm going to talk about the company that I founded called Kloopify. And Kloopify's mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable materials. And so we're starting off and focusing with materials used for electronics. Okay. So to better understand really how Kloopify plays into the current ecosystem, I'd like to give you some information about really the current state of affairs. So did you know that only 12.5% of e-waste is currently being recycled? So although e-waste makes up about 70% of the overall toxic waste that's generated, only 12.5 is actually being recycled. So to give you a little bit of a perspective on how much e-waste society is generating, last year, e-waste generated enough, we as a society generated enough e-waste that weighed more than all of the adults in Europe, or as much as 350 cruise ships the size of Queen Mary II. Or long enough to form a line 125 kilometers long. So you get it. A lot of e-waste is being generated. So how did we get here? It really goes back to the current linear process that we use. The way our manufacturing systems are set up is linear. So if you can see from the slides, we design our products, we produce them, we use them, we love them, and then at the end of their useful life cycle, we dispose of them. So if you think about every time that there's a new product that's introduced or a new product launch, it goes through this exact process. Now think the last year or two, how many electronic product launches have there been? As an electronic consumer myself, it's easy to get overwhelmed with the sheer volume of new products, with the newest and coolest technologies. And all of those product launches are currently following the same, linear model, which is why e-waste is the fastest growing domestic waste stream. And it's predicted to reach 75 metric tons or 75 billion kilograms of waste by 2030. And that's almost doubling the amount of e-waste in just 16 years. So if you think about it, Americans on average own about 24 electronic devices per household, which means that makes 20 kilograms of e-waste annually. We know that that's not going to go away. The world is focused on growth and development. And if we aren't achieving that growth and development, there's a problem. And it's safe to assume that the amount that we produce is just going to increase over time. And the answer is not to stop that progress, but I believe in the human ingenuity that has brought us these amazing innovations. I mean, it's brought us together during these crazy times of COVID, technology. And so that same ingenuity, that same innovation that we're using that has led us to another industrial revolution is where the circular economy begins and becomes the new paradigm. Okay, so this underdeveloped circular economy, particularly for electronics and the electronics industry, currently should look like this and what you're seeing in my slide. We begin with the design of products, production, and as a society, we continue to use those electronics. We love them, we use them, and then once those products have reached their end of life or, we want the newest and coolest technology, they should be collected, they should be disassembled. And then those disassembled components and materials should enter the marketplace. And that marketplace then allows for second life material to be bought and integrated into the designing of new products and technology. And then that's how the circular economy begins again. Makes sense, right? Sadly, it's just really not that simple. How is it that electronic producers understand the need for circular economy and there's an ever-growing demand for sustainable products, yet very little has been done to go from linear to circular? One of the biggest obstacles that's hindering us from adopting the circular economy is disassembly. Disassembly is critical. It is the critical first step in reclaiming materials and components that these electronic devices are made up of. Why, you ask? All right, so think about this for a moment. Think about all of the resources, man hours, processes, technology, and all of the players right now involved in putting together these electronic devices in the first place. Now, compare that to how much effort has been put into the reverse process, starting with the disassembly process. In order to introduce second life materials into the forward manufacturing and into the forward manufacturing process, we need to consider design. We need to consider materials. We need to consider the processes that are going to allow these second life materials to compete with the virgin materials and components. Which leads me to this part. Disassembly is the gateway to the circular economy for electronics. Okay, so one thing's clear. Raw material companies, as well as OEMs, so original equipment manufacturers, have very, very aggressive initiatives in place currently to introduce recycled and secondhand materials. So, however, these same companies, these same chemical companies, these same OEMs, they're facing these challenges that the current disassembly process are just not producing the quality of material that they need. And that really is the premise of which we are building Kloopify. So my company Kloopify is a software as a service or a SaaS solution that leverages artificial intelligence to optimize the disassembly process. Kloopify records activities, automates guidelines, workflows, and enables compliance to obtain quality second life materials that then can be successfully reintroduced and reused, and thus closing the loop. I believe time is of the essence, and Kloopify is taking action now, today, working to make an impact towards moving to a circular economy. This is an exciting time, and if you're interested in becoming a partner and joining us in the journey, reach out. I'd be happy to discuss and kind of geek out over circularity with anyone on the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. That was really great. I think that gave us a really good overview about why we need the circular economy now.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't mind, actually, where did Kloopify come from? It's a really unique name.
Yeah, so Kloopify started with the idea of closing the loop. So we thought Kloop, and then the action of closing the loop, we want to Kloopify things, right? We want to Kloopify the entire electronics industry. So that's how the name Kloopify was birthed.
I love that. I didn't catch that before, but I love it. Close the loopify. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Oh, looks like Bobby, you're able to screen share now. Do you want to share your video quickly?
Yes, I can do that. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Okay.
Do we have audio?
Yes.
I think you have to like share audio. It's okay. Okay, that's great.
That's it. Yep.
That gave us a really good overview about how it works. And
Yep,
the pricing
so
I saw on there, was that 5 cents per ounce of Clorox? That is a good deal.
It is. Yeah. Mine sells 6 cents per ounce as well.
That would have saved me a lot of money over my lifetime of cleaning so far. All right, next, speaking from the education perspective, Dr. Ali teaches graduate and undergraduate courses in architectural design, building materials, and construction. Oh, sorry, mute Helen. Okay. He developed 2 undergraduate and graduate courses in building materials and made significant curriculum changes to the Master of Architecture program and the materials and methods required NAAB accreditation criteria. Dr. Ali's research focuses primarily on the role of design in the circular economy paradigm and the transformation of industrial waste flows to the building products and systems. Welcome, Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for having me and listening to me this evening. So I'm going to talk today about the resource-based design research lab that I founded here at Texas A&M University 5 years ago. Last year, the Time magazine have labeled me as the waste man, and then I looked up the definition of that. It's apparently a new name in the dictionary, which means it's a worthless person or someone who is utterly useless, who has done nothing at all but their life and has made nothing, little to no contribution to society. So just giving you an idea about the next 15 minutes or so. The resource-based design research lab advocates for circular economy through adding value by design. We activate something that we call industrial symbiosis. That's through research, design, and development of solutions for building components, building systems, and building products conceived from the industrial solid waste flow and the manufacturer's byproduct. I'm going to talk to you about waste, and this is a recent conversation between myself and Walter Stahel, which he's considered to be the father of circular economy. Walter said that nature knows no waste, so all waste is man-made, which means our lack of ideas and innovation on how to prevent it in the first place, or how to reuse it once it's here. So let's be creative, but prevention first, please. Eat it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Sufficiency is often the most sustainable option. I commented on Walter's quote with three main ideas that I believe that they represent the work that we do at the resource-based design research lab. The first is the zero waste idea, and I declare that zero waste is impossible. Waste is inevitable to human nature. So wait until you go to paradise, there will be no waste. The second thing is innovation. And I think that biomimicry is a fake idea because nature is God's creation. So we as humans cannot mimic nature. We can only learn from its mode of operation. The third item, which is a sufficiency. If you have a sailboat, for example, you need an auxiliary engine also. When wind blows in your favor, use the sail. But when you need to dock to the harbor, you need to use the engine. Let's talk about waste and value. The problem that once waste becomes valuable, we as humans start producing more of it. Take scrap metals, for example. And General Motors sells its scrap metals for 6 cents a pound. The cost of raw galvanized sheet metal that's used to make the cars in General Motors costs about 50 cents per pound. When we add the value by design to the GM scrap metal, they can sell it for more than the cost of the scrap, but yet less than the cost of raw materials. But wait, scrap metal is recyclable, isn't it? That's true. But do you know how much energy you need to degalvanize, melt, and process all that scrap into the steel back again? So recently, even National Geographic is joining the efforts in promoting for the circular economy and raising the question: is a world without waste is possible? So as I mentioned, waste is a modern idea, does not exist in nature. And we all know that how much of materials that we waste per year, 100 billion tons of raw materials, and most of it ends up as pollution to the environment. Considering the built environment, cities are very important to the circular economy paradigm. And that's why I'm excited that New York is joining this, because 80% of Americans currently live in cities and the proportion is increasing. Waste is also a large problem because in the building and construction activities, this would account for almost 40% of total solid waste. When we look at waste as commodity, waste already is a $57 billion industry in the United States. But you all know that recently, countries, particularly in Asia, have increased the restriction on the import of waste, and then the US companies must deal with their own waste. GM 5 years ago said that they made a $1 billion from recycling their own waste. So what is a resource-based design research lab? I'm gonna walk you through one project that probably we are known for, which is called the Living Wall. The Living Wall is made of the offal or the stamped out pieces that gets into the production of the car body. So all these cutouts from the windows and door components, they got to be sold or dealt with the same like the little scrap metal. We also look at plastics. So for example, this matrix tray, which is the plastic trays that carries the electronic chips also as a single use, and then ended up as waste as well. We start to look at it in building products, whether it's shading devices, building components, or sealing systems by connecting these together. The Living Wall, as I said, it's a project that demonstrates the idea of adding value by design. So the whole is greater than the sum of its part. The Living Wall basically is a system, yet it's an autonomous in its integration into the larger ecosystem where the plants thrive. We looked at outside our building and in the Texas A&M University, and we worked with the university to design and build this full-scale wall that acts also as a secondary envelope or a secondary facade to the exterior. So those of you who are in architecture, you know that having a double facade reduces the energy and the heat gain on buildings as well as increasing the microclimates for the outside. I asked General Motors for samples of their galvanized sheet metal. They sent me 20 tons of those that you can see in the image. And then we started playing with them and designing with them the containers for that Living Wall. So the design becomes a system. It's not just decorative or the idea of cladding a building with kind of a metal skin, but it's also incorporating all the other parts, such as the structure, the irrigation, and so on. Why we call this a circular economy? Because we are, as I said before, we are adding value to this material by design, where a company like General Motors can sell it for more than the cost of scrap, but still less than the cost of raw materials, and therefore the industrial symbiosis activated between the automotive industry and then the building industry. Diego's Riviera industrial mural at the Detroit Institute of Art was at the centerpiece of our thinking. In that regard, the largest part of that mural that you see on the right side is the stamping machine, which Riviera himself is depicted as a harsh sort of industrial object. But then if you think in the last 50 years or so of making cars or more, this stamping operation has not changed. So back to this idea of adding value by design, we think that to activate circular economy or to call anything sustainable, it has to be beautiful as well. The lab engaged our students. So we're talking about education and the next generation of thinkers and architects and designers, where we try a lot of prototypes and then compare this to the existing systems and make the best solution for all of that. Sometimes we have to create our own machines or design and build our own machines to do this, even testing how folding can be done from one piece. In creating these modules or these units, we build 300 of them. They act as a pixelated surface to the exterior of the building, almost like an image wall. So it's not like just a secondary skin of the building, but plants can grow inside them. And the way that we allowed for plants to grow is through the medium of soil and an insulation part to the metal, which I'm going to show you here in a second. This allows for the plants to grow in a natural way versus all other living wall systems that you can buy today in the market, which makes the plant impossible to grow healthier. So by staggering this system is allow for this for the plants to grow in a natural way. Here you can see the installation of that 14 feet high by 18 feet wide living wall, and the cavity or the air space between the wall and the existing building itself. Even our students fit inside one of them to allow for the irrigation to be installed. We don't also, we use the research and temperature and colors in determining a matrix for where to place a plant and what color these living walls could get. So this is basically according to sun exposure that we tied back to the research. Every unit of those is individually irrigated with a very low drip system that currently it's tied to the water line in the building, but the future research of this would make use of the harvesting rainwater or air conditioned condensation and then allow this for irrigation as well. Even with using the irrigation or water line from the building, we still are much lower than typical systems exist in the market because of the low drip system that we use. We also record the performance of these systems, such as the healthy performance of the plants or the soil or the water. And we engage our students in doing this. So again, educating the next generation of researchers about design and circular economy. We compare this to existing products in the market, and you can see that each product in the market has its own sort of problems that either there is not much growing soil or unnatural way of orienting the plants. And then conducting more research about exposure and humidity and irrigation and soil as well. At the end, as I said, sustainability has to be beautiful in order for to get much more exposure and buy-in from the public. Since this wall exists basically on a pathway in a university campus, since it has been installed 2 years ago, a lot of people are passing by it and then started to get educated about the possibilities of circular economy and sustainability as well. So we keep it, so it's almost like a living laboratory. We record it. Some plants are not working well, so we have to understand why, and do we have to maybe rezone the irrigation system or maybe add nutritions in the irrigation system and so on. But regardless of the plants, the wall becomes a manifestation of this idea of industrial symbiosis and circular economy as well. I always look forward, and my team as well, some of them are joining today. We'll look forward for partnerships. We look forward for new opportunities to take, if you are a company with waste flow or byproducts, and turn it into beautiful systems. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Ali. Now, you mentioned industrial symbiosis. And by that, you mean like the partnership with like what you did with the car manufacturer, right? Do you think that's a key component to the circular economy, like talking more between manufacturers and designers?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I am an architect by profession or by nature, right? And I know also that in General Motors or a car company, there is a car designer over there. I don't think much that the car designer would think about when he designed the car and try to optimize the use of material with his engineer or with her engineers, that they think much about buildings. They only think about cars. And the same thing as an architect or a designer, when I design a building, I don't think much about the other industry. And that's what we mean by industrial symbiosis, that if we now do more of these projects, and then the big companies such as General Motors or others starts to see the opportunity, now we can work together much closely between the designers in different industries. So that car designer on the other side, he would start to think about the byproduct of his or her is going to be a building product or a building system, and therefore we can close the gap between design and manufacturing as well. So it's very important. I think it's a critical to the idea of circular economy.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have Constantin Kostenko is the lead for Trium.io growth strategy and solution architecture. He builds platform-based businesses and creates production-grade solutions with Ethereum blockchain fit for a decentralized world. He writes on circular economy and blockchain on ifirebrand.com and at ifirebrand on Twitter. Welcome, Constantin.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'd like to thank Donnie, Jenny, and Liza for inviting me. It's also been an absolute pleasure to be in the company of Dr. Ali, Bobby, and Daniela. I'm looking forward to telling you, in essence, about how to make sure that the right next circular step is being taken by all the participants who can really enable it. And I will try to build on some examples of materials we have heard today. So, so this presentation, I'm going to go through set the context, and then I'm going to walk through the diagram, and I'm really looking forward to questions from the audience at the end of the discussion. So, circular economy is really about the movement and frictionless reuse, as we have heard from other panelists here. And so the core design principle is that you want to reuse the energy that exists. You want to be able to use an item multiple times. And then in cases where you cannot reuse the item, or maybe after the item has finally came to its natural use, you want to find a way to reuse the elements composed of. And Daniela talked about the importance of designing for disassembling. And this is what Dr. Lee emphasized as well. So this slide, I just want to bring to your attention, there's the concept of butterfly diagram, which was created by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I'm not going to go through the diagram in detail, but I will simply want to emphasize that this resource is available, and it shows kind of the key elements of the circular economy. So specifically, we're going to be talking about how do you enable these circular loops that are occurring here, right? So the idea here is that you want to be able to reuse a specific material or product for as long as reasonable, so that it is serves the value. So you really build the economic value not from creating a large number of items. It's really about reusing the items that you have in hand. And so as a result, to enable something like circular economy at scale, it truly requires massive coordination. The complexity grows, I think, exponentially. All right, as you try to, if you attempt to reuse a product, you all of a sudden need to figure out, what about refurbishing? What about reusing it? What about reverse logistics we heard about earlier? And really, you need to find a way, I think we will need to find a way to have a seamless, trackable way of having information flow, having the products flow from location to location, so that it really creates the circular economy, truly circular economy, where the economic value of a product being reused, and most importantly, the value is also shared by the actual participants who form this network in enabling the circular economy. So by definition, humans are selfish. However, humans can absolutely be incentivized to perform certain right activities. And so the critical part of success is really instrumenting the circular products in such a way that you incentivize this the right next step. So, so specifically, you really need to think about how do you design the product, as we heard about earlier, but how do you make sure that it actually comes back to you? But here's the thing about circularity. We don't really know if the return path of your product will be the same path you envision. So the goal here is to instrument the products in such a way that you program your intent, like a commander's intent, that you want certain things to happen. And then how it really comes back to you, you can let the market decide, because ultimately the market is the best decision maker, if incentives are right, to making sure that the product gets to the right next circular step. So the issue here is that the central coordination is limiting, right? Right now we're seeing successes from big companies. We've seen in the news that IKEA is going to be welcoming furnishings back in their stores. They'll buy it back from you to get the scrap or to get the materials off. They're going to try to recycle it or potentially even resell it. We heard about successes from Nestle. We heard earlier today how they're selling some of their products through dispensing methods. So, but the power of these companies come from their size. And when you're Walmart, you really have a lot of leverage over your suppliers. But that's not going to scale. It's not going to scale for other companies. It's not going to scale for medium companies. It's not going to scale for smaller companies either. So the point here is that track and trace solutions are very complex. And also, if you're trying to coordinate and incentivize different participants who may not necessarily know to take specific action, you may not even trust that a large company will follow through and actually execute on their promise. So, so here I'm talking about how Ethereum blockchain can enable programming incentives directly into a product. So I'm not going to go about the details of Ethereum. I have some backup slides for that. If the slides will become available, you can read about them. I can certainly more than happy to hold another session to explain the details of the blockchain. But in essence, the blockchain is a global computer. And blockchain, specifically Ethereum blockchain, has enabled for monetary incentives to be programmable. So money is now programmable. So imagine being able to program money or some other incentive structure value along with a physical device, right? So you can literally create a digital fingerprint representing a physical item and represent it as a token, right? And so you can also program the circularity intent, meaning how do you envision your product to actually flow through the ecosystem? And you can articulate specific steps you want your partners to take, but these partners do not necessarily need to be explicitly defined. And so the idea here is that whoever owns a product at this point of time, at this point of state in the supply chain, whether it's an individual, whether it's a company, whether it is a logistics provider, they get rewarded for their part. And the key point about the blockchain, you can program the intent, meaning that you are guaranteed to be rewarded for the action you take without even the company who gave you or who programmed the money into the product, without actually going back to the company and asking for money. So once they put the money in, it's guaranteed to be released to you into your digital wallet. We're talking about literally dollars. So that is, as long as your activities are being taken correctly and been verified. So the key point here is that this programmability, has not been possible up until the emergence of blockchains. It enables shared rewards, and specifically sharing the economic value generated by a product, so that people participating in circular economy can actually benefit from it as well. So I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes walking through this slide here, and I will try to show how potential flow of potential flow of the rewards as well as incentives can function. So, so I have got a circle around here. This is a Ethereum blockchain. So you can think, as I mentioned, Ethereum blockchain as a really supercomputer on which you can program, you can create, in essence, computer applications that once they're set, they're guaranteed to run. They are unstoppable. And so the idea here is that if you're a company that designs a product, you are hopefully will be designing and thinking about reusability, thinking about how this item is going to come back to you. Perhaps you're entering into the new business model where you want, let's say, for your vacuum cleaner, which is the example I'm using here, to actually come back to you or to your partner, so it could be refurbished. Perhaps a battery changed. Perhaps it could be, brush changed, and you can put it back on the market. So in essence, you can make money on the same vacuum cleaner twice. Okay, so the idea here is that you want to program these the circular steps that you want the consumer to take, that you want the collection agent to take, that you want your disassembly potential set of partners to take, and you associate specific rewards with this given steps. And so the idea here is that for each physical product, you create a digital fingerprint which represents the product. You create this digital fingerprint, you register it on the blockchain, you associate it with this logic we see here, and then you put it onto the blockchain. And as I said, blockchain is something, it is an ability to run computer programs authoritatively without, in essence, ability to be hacked, for lack of a better word. Now, again, in the news, you may have heard about hackings in the blockchain, but there's a slightly different nuance of people forgetting their keys, for example, to their wallet, or your wallet being lost, and that's how hackers, quote unquote, get in. But actually, Ethereum blockchain has never been hacked. And again, technical details are for a different time, but right now we are working on the idea that we can program intent, so we can incentivize humans to take the right next step. All right, so we're at the point where we have this robotic vacuum cleaner. It has been created, has been programmed. There's certain incentives programmed. And then we have a consumer buying the product. And then you can actually reward consumer because your intent as a company is perhaps to have this product to come back to you. So, you spend money, you designed it right, you create a durable product, you want to make sure it comes back to you. So you can actually incentivize the user to take proper maintenance actions. And then you can reward the user for taking those actions. And the beauty here is that you can actually reward it with maybe discounts and coupons, or you can actually reward it with cash, whatever your imagination may be, right? And the point here is that the actual user gets the money that has been programmed directly into the device, into their digital wallet. So that's the key. You no longer even need to go back to company A, to manufacturer, to say, okay, well, I did these actions, use the app. No, as soon as you perform the actions and the actions are recognized, then you automatically get rewarded. All right, so let's take the next step. Let's say the user used the product for a while and they want to get rid of it. Well, if the user is incentivized, instead of throwing the product into a trash can, or maybe just throwing it away or putting it in a recycling depot where it may or may not get recycled, if it's properly incentivized and communicated, they can actually make an effort to return the product to a specific location, where then it will be refurbished, cleaned, and prepared for reuse for secondary sale. When that occurs, because everything is tracked, like the actual digital twin and the token associated with it is tracked on the blockchain, as soon as this product is received by the center, the user gets paid again into their wallet. And again, the key here, the money doesn't actually flow from the refurbishment facility. The money is flowing from the computer program that's holding it here. Okay, well, so let's assume that the refurbishment house says, you know what, can't do anything about it, we got to recycle it. I'm gonna just give it out for collection. Well, so collection, the truck comes, picks it up. Well, they can do two things. We can maybe just toss it, say there's nothing we can do about it, or they can say, I'm just gonna recycle it. But perhaps the device is coded in such a way saying that, wait a minute, there's $25 of value locked into this vacuum cleaner if you take the right next step. So the right next step for the collector would be to actually take it to a disassembly plant. Maybe it's Daniela's company, right? That actually takes the product, and now this assembly company, frankly, could be incentivized. Perhaps the company A has ideas for actually reusing their circuit boards or reusing their computer chips. And maybe that they have actually programmed them in such a way that you can reveal a special QR code to reveal $10 that you as a disassembly company can get if you properly disassemble and take apart the product without breaking the chip. Perhaps when you take the chip out, you need to run certain diagnostics, and then the results of diagnostics will actually unlock some money, right, that now you can have. But that's not half the full story. Well, okay, not just because you unlocked it, you did a good job. Now let's say it was $10. Well, we're gonna take the 10 of the dollars and we're gonna put it in the wallet here, but it's still in escrow. We're still waiting to make sure that this chip actually gets sold, because as Daniela correctly said, this marketplace needs to exist for used goods, okay? So ultimately, let's say this chip is listed, let's say there's a marketplace, let's say there's other companies that are interested in bidding or buying this infrastructure or items. Well, as soon as this company actually buys this chip and the transfer is being made, at that point of time, the actual final transfer, right, can occur. And again, this transfer of money is occurring not necessarily by the company itself, not by the manufacturer, not even by this assembly plant. It's actually coming out of the computer program that is associated with that device, okay? So that's the key takeaway that I wanna have here, is that it is possible to incentivize the behavior of humans as well as corporations to keep the ecosystem flowing. And the key point here is that you want to incentivize the people to take the right next circular step. This presentation will be available afterwards. You can scan a QR code if you're interested to learn an entry on the blog. And I think with that, I will conclude this, and we're ready for Q&A.
Sorry, I was trying to scan the QR code. Okay. All right. Wow, that was a really great presentation, and I think that's a great demonstration of how sustainability just makes good economic sense. And I think a lot of the presenters today were saying that. Okay, so everyone, if you have questions for any of our presenters, please put it in the chat. I am going to start going through the chat. And, oh, there's a lot of questions. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is for Bobby. Is there an opportunity for Algramo to use glass containers for longer use?
Not right now. So right now we're focused on actually using the packaging from the brands. And there's a couple of reasons why we do that. Number one, from a brand integrity standpoint, these brands spend a lot of time and money on manufacturing these types of bottles. Some of these bottles are very unique to the brands. The second point is also from a safety standpoint. So with Clorox specifically, if you mix bleach with, let's say, ammonia, it could actually be deadly. So by putting our tag on some of these bottles, we can limit as much as possible what the consumer actually mixes in these bottles. So right at this moment, we don't necessarily want you to use your own bottles. You know, one of the pilot locations that we're currently running in is a laundromat. What we noticed is that a lot of people bring their detergent in a Poland Spring bottle or a water bottle. And it's pretty obviously why. They're obviously lugging their laundry from their buildings. It's heavy. They don't want to carry a heavy detergent bottle as well. That's super interesting, but a water bottle, the plastic made in a water bottle is super thin, and something like bleach is corrosive. So you have to be very careful in terms of what some of these chemicals mix with in terms of material. So it's easier for us to just limit it with the brand's bottles.
That's actually a really good point. Contamination could be an issue. And if they're already manufacturing their own bottles, like, use that, right? Makes sense.
Right. And that's the beauty of this, is that it's easier for us to get going since we're already using the brand's bottles. Whereas you look at a company like Loop, which actually manufactures new types of bottles. I'm sure most are familiar with Loop. If not, Loop basically supplies metal containers for toothpaste or even ice cream and Haagen-Dazs. You receive those containers, you use your product, you basically send it back to the company, they clean them and they send them back to you. So it's a bit different. So that's very heavy operational logistics business. Us, it's very simple and quick to get going.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. You don't have to make your own bottles and absorb that cost. You can just have the companies do it, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. Let me look through some more of these questions. Daniela had shared the Keeping IT in Place Circularity 20 breakout session. And that was one of the most mind-boggling facts, Minerve. There is more gold and a ton of electronic waste than there is in 17 tons of ore. Wow. I think this is more of a comment than a question. Also, there's more landfilled rare earth metals than are in all known mineable deposits.
Yeah, so that's a awesome fact to kind of bring it all back together to why it's so important to have a solution for, closing the loop, especially on the materials used for electronics, because they have a high intrinsic value, right? And so we're not taking advantage of all of the materials that that these electronics are made up of. And so having key and really strong disassembly processes that these recyclers, reprocessors can use, then enables us to actually keep and maximize the value of these products, right? And these materials. And so when you can maximize the value and keep the quality of the byproducts high, then these chemical and material companies can actually start introducing them into their forward manufacturing. And that's why I go back to the point that disassembly is really the key when it comes to the electronics industry in particular.
So would you say that Kloopify specializes in electronic waste?
I would say Kloopify is a software that it provides disassembly intelligence as well as tracking of activities and materials throughout the life cycle. So a little bit of what Constantin kind of mentioned in this whole understanding where it came from so that you can really understand where it needs to go.
Yeah. Okay. So it can be used for a wide variety of things, not just e-waste.
That is correct. Yes, we just have decided to start with the electronics industry because of the, again, high intrinsic value and because of how wasteful it is, right? If you think back to 70% of the waste that's going to landfills and is considered e-waste, right, is hazardous. So that in itself poses a huge problem to the environment and to society, you and I.
Yeah, that's actually a really great place to start. Okay, I have another question here. Do we have to wait for every point of the supply chain / entire industry to participate in order for blockchain to be useful? That's for Constantin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good question. The answer is no. I think when people started thinking about blockchains and supply chains, they immediately thought, well, why can't just everybody use it, right? It's a simple thing to do. It's not simple, right? It's not a simple thing to do. And especially if you think how blockchain started, it started with private blockchain. So there's a lot of these called enterprise blockchains that are private. And this is also very similar to how the internet started. It started with the intranet. So you're able to send emails within your company, but that's only, it's very limiting. The real opportunity here is the intranet, right? The public blockchains. And so in terms of, participation, I don't think the network, right, kind of the network that's going to be used by, let's say, by everybody has not yet been built, but does not mean you cannot derive value. So case in point right now, if you're a company that you want to absolutely 100% be sure that your product returns back to your to your warehouse or to wherever you are, you can absolutely create a blockchain app, quote unquote app, that you can communicate on the bottle or on your product the steps you can take in order to get, as I mentioned, rewarded for taking that. So that's the simplest thing of doing. So one example, working with one of the largest consumer packaged goods companies, the brand you recognize. And so they also have an electronics product. Let's pretend it's a vacuum cleaner. And so they are interested in actually making sure that the users take care of the product so that they can reuse the product later, but also they use it in economically and environmentally safe way so that they can be rewarded, right? So if you follow a certain maintenance procedure, the answer could be like, well, we'll plant a tree for you, or we're gonna clear, 10 acres of an ocean. And the key here is that you should not trust that company. You should be seeking proof that what they're saying is actually true. And this is where blockchains help. They enable people who don't trust each other, enable who organizations don't trust each other to perform trusted transactions.
So depending on the company, they could design their reward system so that you don't have to wait necessarily until it's been completely disassembled and completely sold off, but there could be sort of incremental steps to the rewards. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it actually gets even more interesting because every piece of item, as Daniela mentioned, actually has value. So now you have a token that represents that item. So technically you can have this item and you can actually trade it, right? All of a sudden you can start doing very interesting financial operations with it. You can say, look, I want to get a loan on the value of the items, electronics that are in my warehouse. I have not yet processed it yet, but here's the proof that I have it. Here's a set of token, and you can use blockchain to verify by yourself that I'm the rightful owner. Here's the value of actual items. Here's the information from manufacturer of how much gold is in these items. And even I haven't yet mined it, I can still use this as a collateral to perhaps even finance my operations. There's a lot of interesting, what we call money Lego blocks you can do in order to couple physical products to this digital representation.
Wow. Okay, so this next question is for you too. It says, great framework. What about the blockchain storage of all data? And I think that sort of relates to my question, which is, how close are we to having this system in place?
Well, so I'll answer the second question first, is that we're already there. It fits for purpose, right? It's fit for purpose, depending what you want to do with it. So, with respect to the internet, when it started, people say, well, it's not really working. I'm sending emails and it's just text. I want to send attachments. You're like, all right, well, let's get you attachments. Now that you get attachments, and it's like, let's do video calls. No, that's science fiction. Will never happen. Okay, will never happen. Now the whole world runs on video. So it's fit for purpose. You will always have use cases that are much more ambitious than technology, including the internet, right? Talking about 5G now, we're able to have broadband speed on your iPhone or on your phone. Well, we're not there yet. We will be in a year or two, but we're not there yet. So to answer your question, for the use cases that enable you to transfer value, to track the value, to do financial operations, think about it. Ethereum blockchain, it has billions of dollars locked in its ecosystem. It literally protecting tens of billions of dollars as of right now, including performing financial operations as well as collateral for real things, for different cryptocurrencies. So the applications are real, so we're there. And as for the first questions, which was about the data, again, you only want to store, the only type of data you want to store on the blockchain is the data you want everybody else to see. That's the whole point. When the company A, in my example, creates a promise to the world that they will reward the ecosystem providers if they take the next regular step, the people want to have a proof that money is there and the logic is there, meaning that if they perform certain action, they're guaranteed to get rewarded for that. So, but that's the only type of data you really need to capture. You're not going to put images on the blockchain. You're not going to put private data on the blockchain, even though there are methods in place for you to hide data to make it private so you can store it. The bottom line is you only store only what matters, and then you only put transaction information where you don't have mutual trust between the parties.
Okay, I think it's going to be a good way for the consumer to start valuing raw materials more, right? I feel so many people throw things out on the stoop and it just hurts my heart. Okay, this question I think could apply to everyone. What are some interesting partnerships that have made, or can you make each of your respective companies / lines of work more efficient and stressful? And I think we should start with Dr. Ali since he hasn't gotten a chance to answer questions yet. I know you talked about the car manufacturer. Is there anything else that you're working on?
Yes, well, I mean, I'm in the education sector, so my first and foremost is educating our next generation about the possibility for design and the importance of design in the circular economy paradigm shift. So I don't have a company, and I'm not in the business of making money. We generate ideas, and then we can patent them. So the wall is patent. Then we look for opportunities for to bring together these manufacturers industry and then other industries, and then demonstrates through design that it could be possible that there is an alternative path for recycling, which is the creative reuse. So in this regard, I mean, our palette is open to any industry that produce consistent and large volume byproducts and waste flows. And then they might be recycling it at the moment, or they might be selling it as a commodity. What I would like for these companies and manufacturers to do is to a little bit give it a try, right? Give it a try to collaborate with people like us and other designers, and see what are the possibilities. How can you generate revenue, right? How can you add value to your waste streams and so on. I think it speaks to the role of design in the circular economy paradigm.
Great. Does anyone else have any partnerships or just industrial synergies like Dr. Ali was talking about that they're working on or that could really benefit them?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the goal of Kloopify and to really focus on the disassembly, you have to understand what material and where they'll come from. So that connection between material companies and OEMs who are actually using those materials to produce the products, and the recycling or the reprocessing companies who are doing the disassembly, those partnerships actually help all of them, right? So if you're an OEM and you're trying to create more sustainable products, you're looking to your chemical suppliers and your material suppliers to provide you with those sustainable products or second life material. And if you're a chemical company, right, and they're feeling that pressure of providing those materials, they're looking to the reprocessors for high quality second life materials so that they can then either blend in with the virgin material or, create these components that ultimately get sold to the OEM. So Kloopify's goal is really to be able to connect all three, right? The OEM, the reprocessor, and the chemical companies, kind of in line with what Constantin said of just incentivizing all three players by meeting the pains and the gains of the industry, right? These reprocessors, when they get the electronic components for the most part, or the products for the most part, they don't know what they're made up of, right? What the materials are, what the components are. And so that kind of partnership between, even Dell and a reprocessor and a company like Covestro that creates or produces those materials, that's key to success when we're thinking about enabling the circular economy.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is the role of collaboration in the circular economy. It seems like it's not possible unless people really work at it together. Yeah. Okay.
I'll add one more thing. I think it's very, very important to emphasize also the role that the governments may provide. So kind of looking back at my screen here. So I didn't want to talk about it because we're running short on time, but I also have a little kind of like picture of, the government here that can really plug into this ecosystem. So for example, if you register your product in the blockchain, right, and you have a token associated with it, it's public information. Obviously, you can make it public information. The point here is the government can actually incentivize their marketplaces and functioning and kickstarting the infrastructure so people actually buy the materials coming from this assembly providers, assuming the quality is there. And they can do it seamlessly by, as I mentioned, these kind of Lego bricks, by coupling their intent, right? Understanding what's in the ecosystem, and in essence saying, hey, look, if your product, if this product, let's say it's made out of, X, Y, and Z, which we know already been registered, and it's part of this, entry in the blockchain, for lack of a better term here, well, we can incentivize you. We will give you, let's say, $10, $20 per unit if you use it. So anytime there is a resale occurring, on the item that's already been, let's say, registered and then incentivized by the regulator, that's going to kickstart the use of the actual products. That's going to kickstart the circular economy. And there's certainly this kind of incentive from the government and regulators needs to be in place in order for it to scale and become self-sufficient.
Yeah, that's important to point out the role of the government and regulations. That sort of brings me to, I know chemical patents and chemical disclosures are an issue for sustainability, at least in interior design, which is where I'm at. So does anyone see sort of any obstacles in terms of chemical disclosure and sort of the disassembly process? Does anyone want to speak to that?
Danny, I would like just to speak to the idea of collaboration that you mentioned before, which, I mean, we are not, we didn't come up with a living wall idea or green walls, right? You know, this idea exists even in centuries, right, history. But then if you look at the products that exist in the market, for example, they were all developed to be mass produced, obviously, but then the thing stops right there. And I worked with a landscape architecture professor also, that he has been studying living walls and green roofs for almost 2 decades now, and published books and everything about this. And we collaborated together, right? So an architecture and landscape architecture collaborating together. And he has been, he has been working on living walls for the last 10 years, testing and studying these market systems. But what's the problem is all of these living walls were up on the roof, and then the research was done there, and there was no sort of interaction to the public. The fact that we have designed that wall to be on a pathway and to be in sort of a visible area on campus have sparked this idea of collaboration, meaning that we've started to get people from water conservation department saying that, oh, I have an idea about, a better way to harvest water and reuse water and integrate it to your system. We have started seeing engineers that their specialty in metals, for example, and then they want to start to study the fracture when you bend materials like metal like this, and determine the life of these systems and products. And we've started seeing people in the soil mechanics, for example, researchers and so on. They said, well, now I can create a better soil that can live in these vertical systems and so on. So this is the idea of sparking collaboration. Once you can have something out to the public and then start to create this conversation. I mean, similar to the Bobby's tricycle thing, which is, by the way, something exists in all the developed countries. In a sort of a very sort of primitive way, but now with technology and with much more cleaner image, we want to make it the mainstream for the developed country. So collaboration is important to the idea of circular economy. I think the key is how to spark the collaboration by showing pilot projects and exposing it to the public.
Danny, if I can just mention one last thing, I know we're running here close out of time, but to your comment about the sharing of information for chemicals, right? These OEMs, they require from the chemical industry and from the material companies to be sharing MSDS sheets, so material safety and data sheets, right? And so that's a huge gap that we see in the industry too, because when a reprocessor gets an electronic device, they don't have access to that information. And if you're thinking about the materials and the hazardous materials specifically in electronics, that's key to just ensuring safety for their own employees, not just being able to close the loop, but making sure that as you're doing the disassembly process, you're really doing it in a safe way as well, which is, you know, should be priority number one, which is why companies like Kloopify, right, are interested in being able to leverage that data across multiple players.
So you would be like the safekeepers of proprietary information?
We could be the safekeepers of that information so that the key industry players have access to it, while also keeping it, you know, anonymize the data so that you don't know where it's coming from. But as you understand the components, as you understand the products, then you have a better understanding of really what your byproduct should be, but also what safety measures you need to put in place because of the hazardous materials within the electronic products.
Okay, so I'm seeing that this could possibly lead to some more transparency and, you know, what's out there in terms of our products, and also more collaboration. I'm seeing a lot of great things in circular economy, and I can't really poke holes right now. And there's so many questions that I want to ask, but we are over time, I just realized. So just one last thing. We don't have a forum for, this is not it. We don't have a forum for December, but our next forum will be right here, January 20th. And that's when we do like fast shooting of like multiple different topics. And we sort of kick the year off with just a wide variety of topics. So thank you all for joining us. I think we had a really great conversation, and please feel free to reach out to each other and continue the conversation.
Thank you. Have a great night or day, wherever
Thank you. Take care.
everyone is. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great.